Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. I am your host, April DeMille, and today we're going to be talking to a fabulous lady. Her name is Rachel Baldock. She is a breathwork and intuitive coach, um, a medium, an ex-nurse, and the owner of Restorative Rach. So, I'm very excited to talk to her about medium stuff. Hey, Rachel. So, again, thank you for being with us. I did just read out your introduction, but you have quite a variety of a background, and I want to hear more about that. So, I know that you are into breath work, and you're a medium, and you're an ex-nurse, and so how did that transformation kind of come about?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, firstly. It's lovely to be on your podcast.
Thank you.
And that came about through a series of events, really. I was nursing for 16 years and I nursed in Melbourne, Australia during COVID, which was really like one of the most intense lockdowns in the world. So it was
Oof.
really busy and tough, and so that got me questioning a lot of things about nursing in general. And I'd already done my yoga teacher training through that time. And then my marriage ended very abruptly during COVID, and that kind of I was like, I need to change. I need to do everything differently. So I decided to move states. So I'm now living in a different state, and start doing breath work and started exploring that more for myself, and it literally changed my life. Like, I
Mhm.
was someone who was very anxious, didn't know how to feel my feelings, didn't know how to express myself, and breathwork in particular was a really great way for me to be able to feel without having to talk it through. um, and yeah, that's how kind of I've gotten to where I am now.
So is it safe to say that breath work is like your go-to grounding method?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say that must be your favorite one then. Yeah, so
Yes.
and it's a good one. I mean, it does definitely anchor you into your body.
Yeah.
Because we all like to disassociate and bounce out when things get hard and we have to feel all the feels. So,
Yeah. Yeah, like that's been one thing that I have learned, to sit with the complexity of discomfort more,
mhm.
and it's something that I now teach other women or guide other women through in the work that I do. So it's, yeah, breath work is a huge part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Mm.
so you said COVID was kind of your transition out of nursing, right? That was kind of like you were like, that's it, I'm checked out at this point. Like that was kind of the thing. But I wanted to go back a little bit because you said you'd been a medium since you were like 4, right? So it
Yes.
started very early for you.
Yes.
Um, can you tell me a little bit about what childhood was like with that? I definitely have some questions I would like to touch
Mm.
base on through that, but I definitely would love to hear a little bit about like what that looked like for you.
Yeah, well, my earliest experience is from 4 years old. So I remember waking up in the middle of the night and there was this man. He was like in black and white, so he wasn't. There was no like, his clothes were all black and white. He was wearing a top hat, and he like walked into my room and he looked like he was trying to give me a hug. But at 4 years old, that is really creepy when there's a a man in your room who looks like a ghost. So I like just remember covering my face with the blanket, being like, I don't want to see this man, and then peeked over the blanket, and he was gone. Um, and told my mum in the morning, and she is someone who has always been very open to that sort of stuff. So she was just like, it's okay, you're all good, like don't worry about it. It might have been somebody who has passed away, and she kind of had this whole talk to me about it. And to be really honest with you, there aren't a lot of memories from my childhood except for that specific memory. And for me, having a message coming through from my grandparents when my grandma died, I gave a message to my dad saying like that they said to say goodbye and I'll always love him. But other than that, it really didn't start properly until I was in my 20s, I would say.
So you did kind of answer some of the questions because one of my questions was like, were you in like a supportive upbringing, supportive in the
Mm,
sense that was it acknowledged and welcomed and, a little softly guided in that way? And it sounds like you were. I
yeah.
was not. And so like I know
Ah,
that mediumship can look very, very scary, which you also touch base on that because if you don't know what's happening, it can be terrifying. And
yeah,
I would also say, would you also agree that even the most seasoned mediums can still get scared?
absolutely.
Oh
Yeah,
God, it can still totally shock you. Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I
yeah,
still get things happening where I'm like, oh my God, that was, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that was a lot. Yeah.
So you said in your 20s, so like how did that look for you? Like you started, were you open about it like publicly or was it just like friends and family? Like how did that start to kind of unravel?
Yeah, so it got weird. Like I would wake up during the night and it was in this specific house. So perhaps the house itself was really, had a lot of people who had passed away. I don't know, but like I would wake up in the middle of the night and there would just be people staring at me. So similar to what happened when I was a kid. Um, Three that I remember specifically, like there was this dude sitting in the corner of my room, quite a large man, just looking at me, and I just was like, at this point they were in color, so they looked very real, and so I would think that there was someone in my room.
Yeah.
And one that I always speak about is this man. I woke up and he was at the end of my bed. He was wearing a wedding dress. He saw me looking at him and went, "Oh my God!" and hid under the bed.
That's actually funny.
Yeah, and I had my partner at the time. I was like, "Oh my God, there's somebody under the bed. Can you please check?" So he actually was very good and was like, "There's no one under the bed, Rachel. Like, I'll check for you, but there's no one there." And lo and behold, there was no one. So that's how it showed up initially,
Okay.
and then it kind of came into my nursing life as well. So
Ah,
people who were in the hospital system, like patients, would start saying things to me like, I'm gonna die, or I had someone come to me in the night and talk to me, or there's a man standing at the end of my bed. Like, for some reason, it was always me that they would come to. And so, yeah, it started happening more there. I had a really strange experience where my granddad came through one of my patients.
okay.
Um, that was that was wild. So yeah, it just kept happening in more and more spaces of my life, and I think at that time, being in my early 20s, I again was like didn't know what to do with it. I
Yeah.
wasn't really in the space of offering it as a service.
Yeah.
I was very much into my nursing and science and like this sort of thing. Really,
Right.
I was open to it, but it freaked me out. So
Yeah.
I had a friend, my mum's friend, who's very spiritual and very open to this stuff, said to me, "You can tell them to go away if you want to." And so I was like, "Okay."
Well, and
So I
actually,
literally,
the fact that you had that experience when you were 4 and you said, I don't want to see
mm,
this, like he heard
mm,
you and left.
and he
So,
left.
yeah. So, like, yeah, you didn't even realize that yet, but you were already doing that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And she just said, you can tell them to leave. You don't
Yeah.
have to. They don't have to be coming at 3 in the morning or through the hospital or whatever it is. So I did. I said I don't want to see you guys at all anymore.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I wish that I hadn't said that because that actually really that cut me off from it for quite a long time.
Right.
I would wake up still and see maybe some swirling colors in the middle of the night, but nothing. I've never seen them as I saw them back then ever since, ever
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting that moment of like go away
Yeah. Yeah.
because it
That's,
was so scary.
yeah. I'm going to sit here and kind of process that one for a second too, because I realized the other day,
Mm.
I just had a moment the other day was like, you know what's weird? I was thinking this to myself. I haven't seen a spirit in a while the way I used to. but I don't think it's because I'm shut off for it. I'm
Mm.
actually very open to it. Um, but I think we go through different levels of transformation, and spirits tend to choose which ways will they'll come through most effectively, right?
For
So that
sure.
happens when you have sitters and when you have, readings and all the things. Like it happens that way naturally anyway. But I'm in a
Yeah.
place where right now that's not serving me the best way. And so I've
Yeah.
noticed it and I'm like, huh, that's crazy because I'm always one like you that saw with my physical eyes. So they'd
Yes.
stand at my bed, they'd pull on my blankets, play with my hair, fucking talk to me all night. And I'm like, dude, just
Yeah.
shut up. Like,
Yes.
yeah. So I went through all that too. Like, I'm like, oh Lord. But I did not have the supportive guidance that you had. I wouldn't even say I was always afraid of it. Sometimes though, it did catch me off guard and it would scare me. But like my parents, when I started to talk about it, it was more like she must have an imaginary friend. Maybe there's something mentally wrong with
Right.
her. And it scared them, right? Because a lot of people are like, I don't know what's fucking happening here. And so I learned to internalize it and shut it up really quick and keep it to
Yep.
myself. And I didn't come out publicly until I was 38.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was like, yeah, no, this isn't me. I don't want to do any of this stuff. I tried really hard to give it back as
Yep.
long as I could, and that didn't work either. So yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty much the same as me.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, so I'm 38 this year, 2 years ago, when I did a coaching training and it opened way back up.
Yeah.
Like, well, actually, it was more maybe 4 years ago when my marriage ended. It started again. I started getting these messages, like inner knowings, the voice, like the talking, and you're like, "Am I going insane?"
Yeah.
Like,
You're
um,
like, wait a minute,
and
am I like schizo or something? I don't understand what's
yeah,
happening here. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
If
you
I
do.
went to the doctor,
What would they say? Yeah, exactly.
yeah, this wouldn't sound good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, but in this coaching setting, it was a week of like really intense training, and all of a sudden it just completely opened back up. In terms of, I was like, why am I hiding this?
Yeah.
Why am I holding myself back from sharing something that's actually kind of a gift? So
Mhm.
I got out of the training and like openly talked about it on my Instagram, which was huge,
Yeah.
and was like, look, I've been able to do this since I was 4. I'm going to start offering these medium readings for people. If that's what you would like, then, it's this price and blah, blah, blah. And had an influx of people being like, oh my God, I would love one. And so it's been, yeah, 2 years of offering it as a service now, which I love
Do
doing.
you do any like medical mediumship just because you have that background? Like, does it kind of play a big role in, just curious.
Well, I love that you've asked that because I'm actually reading a book at the moment called Awakening Intuition
Okay.
by a medical intuitive,
Awesome.
and have really thought about it because it would be a really, really cool thing to do. And I do, when I'm doing my medium readings, I get a felt sense of what's happening in the person's body,
Right.
and can actually say to them, "Hey, I can feel that you've got this thing going on right now," and they're like, "Oh my God, yeah, that my shoulder's been hurting me for ages," and kind of.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of already doing it in a way, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this book has sparked that curiosity a bit more.
So there's your little confirmation that you're that you might want to keep being open to
Mm.
that. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. Thank
yeah,
you.
no, that's good. Um, so um, let's see. Question. Are you able to talk about some of the differences between intuition and fear for people that are just now, like starting their journey? They're
Mm.
interested in trying to kind of tap in, like, and how do we discern those differences? And how's that
Oh,
work for you?
yeah, great question. I mean, I always say to people who I'm guiding through this sort of stuff that it's individual for everybody.
Hmm.
Like it's going to be individual to the person, but there are like key things that are going to show you that it is your intuition talking or fear talking. Like a lot of the time, if it's fear talking, it'll be talking in like what ifs. What if this happens? What if this happens? What if this? It'll be quite loud, um, overbearingly loud. Whereas intuition, and this is from my own personal experience, it's been something that started quite subtly, and is more of a calm voice for me, or a calm feeling, or an inner knowing, because the intuition shows up as, in different ways through our clair senses. So it depends on which one is more alive for you in terms of, do you feel things more? Do you hear things more? Do you see, like, you just said that you see things more. So for some people, it's that inner knowing when they get that download of information come through. So
Yeah.
it's going to look and sound and feel differently for everybody, but I guess they're the main things of like fear is often going to be more loud and more what's the word? Like it's going to perhaps even cause anxiety. Like
Yeah.
there are so many things. Yeah, so fear is wanting to keep you small,
That's
keep you
actually,
contained in the known.
yeah, that's actually a great way to put it because, for one, I think you're right. Like we all, so like I have the ability to tap into all my clairs. So my
Yeah,
hearing and my seeing are equally as loud, and so is my feeling, right?
yeah,
But you're right. There's an individual process that goes with that because of, what we're using, what avenues of abilities we're kind of tapped into. But I would say for
yeah.
sure, fear feels you feel it in your body, whereas intuition is brings more peace to your body as opposed
Mm,
to did I feel that in my stomach? Did I feel that in my back? Did I feel that in my head? Like, things like that. Like there's sometimes patterns attached to the fear, and you have to look at that piece too. So I
mm,
would agree with that. And intuition, I want to say sometimes, and again, this depends on the person, but sometimes because intuition is subtle, the first voice is your ego, the second voice is your
mm.
intuition, which is why they
Yeah,
say sit there for a second, don't just go with your first, right? Because like, have you ever heard like when we're in school, they're like, go with your first, the first thought that you had when you're taking a test, right? It's always the first one,
yeah.
right? But when it's intuition, it's not always the first one. So it's kind of backwards of what you get taught like in schools, because it's usually
Mm.
your ego that's louder and at the forefront and needs to be heard right away. And then the intuition's the second voice.
Yes and no,
Yes
right?
and
Because
no, right,
sometimes, yeah, like sometimes, for example, if you were in an alleyway and
right.
something's scary, your intuition is going to say, run,
Right. And that's why it's
or
hard.
whatever it
That's
might
why
be.
it's so hard to
Mm,
discern because sometimes it is your ego coming for first, and sometimes it's like, oh no, this is the one I have to move on first, right? So it's really hard to discern sometimes.
absolutely. I just ran a course that was largely based around intuition, and the women in that group were saying for them, like all of them were like, no. One of them was like, my intuition yells at me every single time. One of them
Hmm.
was like, no, my intuition's really quiet. The other one was like, no, I have this feeling. Like every single one was so different and individual, and I loved witnessing that because we can often be like, oh, but mine does this, so everybody does. But it's
Right.
like, no, it's so
Well, and
individual,
mine
and
does both. Mine will scream at me and be
yeah,
subtle. So I'm like, it just depends on which day it is.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I always like to say that like intuition is like a muscle, right? It's like
Mhm.
the more you utilize it and practice listening to it or feeling it or whatever it might be, it'll get stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's about practice and about
For sure.
using your discernment on, okay, what is it for me that is what is happening for me in my body, not what is this person taught me to do. Like it's really, I love learning and teaching about this stuff because it is so about the person being in their own sovereignty and really listening to themselves.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Mm.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because I had
Mm.
touched base slightly on, what your thoughts are on even the most practiced mediums still getting scared sometimes, and
Mm.
why that's actually normal and important to understand, right? Because I had an experience once back in, I'm going to say this was 2018, 19, that kind of window.
Mm.
And I was really flustered with my soul team at the time. And I was like, okay, I'm sick of everybody's shit. I just need to see my spirit guide. We need to have a powwow, right? And the first words I heard was, well, it's going to scare you. And I was like, that doesn't fucking make sense. Why would it scare me if
Mm.
I'm asking for it? And also, I've seen ghosts my whole life. What the fuck? Right? So I'm
Yeah,
sitting here
totally.
arguing with my soul team about, like, okay, whatever, right? Sure enough, my spirit guide approaches me in a human form, and scared the fuck out of me. Totally caught me off guard. Now I'm calling the cops on my spirit guide, making a police report, 3-page police report. This is a true story
Oh my God.
on my spirit guide, right? That no one else can see, right? And 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 then about a week or two after my nervous system came down and wasn't, because I thought there was a man in my house like stalking
Of
me and all this.
course.
Yeah, like I was like, what the fuck? So I'm thinking there's this huge man in my home stalking me and freaking me out and like, what is going on, right? So I make this huge police report, do all these things. And then sure enough, I'm sitting down like a week or two later. My body's finally starting to calm down. I'm feeling pretty fucking violated right about now, but like I'm starting to kind of come to. And
Yeah.
my spirit guide shows up and they were like, we told you it was going to scare you. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like,
That
that
was
was
you.
you? I was like, holy shit, dude. Now I feel like such an idiot. Right. So, like, and I tell this story because for one, it's hilarious. Right. But for
Right,
two,
yeah.
it's really important to know that when you're awakening and coming online, even though we think that we can handle it because we've had this experience or that experience, our human does still fucking freak out. And it's
Hmm.
completely normal. It is
Yeah.
completely normal. And it takes years and years and years to desensitize that human in a way. And still, you can still get caught off guard, right? No matter what.
Yeah.
So that's why I tell that story, because there's going to be moments when you're awakening or coming online that you're going to look fucking insane. It's just
Yeah.
normal. It's
Yes.
part of the process. So I love telling that story, but I want to know if you have any other stories that are like that are just like mind blowing and like what the fuck.
Oh, look. Yeah, so many. I remember when my marriage ended, it was quite abrupt, and I wasn't really expecting it, and it was a 10-year relationship, so I was really really devastated, and I was I'd started, this is definitely a part of my like awakening journey. I had started going down the rabbit hole of looking into Hollywood and looking into all of these different things and being like, oh my God, like there is some dark shit happening in the world. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And so I was in a pretty bad place, I would say, at that point. And again, I woke up during the night and there was this terrifying dark figure just like peeking its head around the corner. And it had like it had these creepy eyes. And I remember waking up and like screaming. I swear my neighbors would have heard me because I was like screaming, thinking that there was this like, I don't know, demon in my room. But what I realize now in hindsight was that it was just a projection of my own dark shit that I was moving through. Like it was just it was a mirror reflection of me. But at the time, I could not have seen that. I was so freaked out by this like terrifying figure in my room that I just was like wanting it to stop.
Yeah.
Um, and that I was like, I'm not looking into Hollywood anymore. That's
Yeah.
rabbit hole done.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense because
Yeah.
I remember being in a place where things were very dark. I was going through a lot of
Mm,
grief and a lot of anguish after a very serious loss. And and this is not to dismiss anyone else's experience, but
Oh God, no.
there is dark energy in the world. People do vibrate at that frequency and do have those
Yeah.
realities. And because of that, I was experiencing things like that too. I had seen some very, very dark things. I was seeing very
Mm,
dark beings. Um, and I'm not in that place. Like, I don't, it's not something that I even think about anymore. And I know how much control I have. Whereas back then, I didn't know. I didn't know I was the authority, right? And that made the difference in what I was witnessing as well. Um, but,
mm-hmm.
but I will say I was going somewhere with that. What happened? Oh no. Ah, where was I going with that? Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say yes. So I will say that dark stuff does happen, and I don't want to dismiss anybody else's experience about that because
Mm,
it was very real in my life at one point, and it sounds like yours too. But another thing
mm,
I learned from my soul team was because I would see also tree spirits and other types of spirits
yeah.
that scared the shit out of me. Because
Mm,
what I learned was when they were making themselves available to me because they wanted to share their essence, their energies with me, there were the way the light waves and the light conditionings broke down those things so I could see it sometimes made it look distorted and very scary. And so
yes.
that's another
Yes.
thing that people have to take into consideration is sometimes, like you said, the eyes being a certain way, sometimes things can look very distorted because our worlds are trying to do a thing that they're not really doing very well or meant to do. Does that make sense? So like a lot
Totally.
of times I had to learn that the light fractions and all those things had to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. I would agree with that, saying that like, yeah, there are some things that I see that are I'm still processing that I believe do become distorted. Like
Yeah.
the faces that I am shown, I'm still figuring that out of what exactly they are, but
Mm-hmm.
I do often see a lot of faces that are shown to me, and they are very distorted. But I've gotten so used to them now that it doesn't freak me out anymore. It just I'm like, oh yeah, okay, there's another face, like
Yeah, I get that too. In
another
fact,
being.
that makes me want to ask you a question.
Mm,
So when like a face just pops out at me all of a sudden and it's like right in
mm-hmm,
my face,
mm,
and sometimes that can happen around reflections, like off of a mirror or a car window or something. It'll just like pop
yep,
in real quick, and I'm
yep.
like, oh God, you just hit me in the face. What the fuck? But does it sometimes like feel a little painful for you in a physical sense? Because I have this experience where not all the time. It's like if the face is protruded in a certain way,
Mm,
my physical eye does this weird like vibration thing really quick. It's like it has to vibrate to be open to it. It has to adjust to a
yes,
certain frequency. And when my eye does that thing
yeah.
really quick, it goes da 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 da. It actually, I feel it and it actually kind of hurts. I'm like, oh, God dang, dude, like what the fuck? So I was curious if you ever have that happen to you.
Yes, yeah, I
Okay.
often do have. Mine doesn't show up in light reflection. Mine shows up in trees,
Okay.
or in different like shapes on. Say, for example, like I've got this piece of paper, right? Sometimes I'll look at the piece of paper, just be looking at it, and there'll be a face in the paper.
Okay. Yeah.
But like the same thing will happen if I look at it in a certain way. It'll distort my eyes for a second, and I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's
it's like your eye had a
cool.
little seizure for a second. It's like
Yeah,
such a weird feeling. It is so weird. And I've
it
never
was very
actually even
weird.
it's such a weird thing. I've never actually talked about that on this podcast yet. So I'm glad that I get to go, "Oh, let's geek out on this for a minute," because it is such a strange
Totally.
sensation, right? And it doesn't always feel good. It's like enough
No.
of a sensation you can actually feel it and it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling, and I honestly have never talked about it either because I'm just like, it's strange. Maybe it's just me. So,
It's not just you. I'm like, that is such a weird thing. I'm actually so glad we talked about that.
yeah.
Oh goodness, oh goodness. Okay, so let's shift gears for a second. You also do the breath work and
Mm,
leading other ladies that you guide.
mm,
One of the big things you talk about is coming home to yourself. So,
Mm.
can we talk a little bit about what that means for you and how you're able to help other women in that journey?
Yeah, so over the past 3 years of running my business, I have started a women's circle and also a group program for women. So, in the women's circle, it is really a space where women can come and just unmask. There's no pretending, there's no sugarcoating things. Like, some of the things that are shared in there are really deep and ugly and messy. Like, it's just honoring the messiness of life. And what I'm meaning when I say people coming home to themselves is that idea of take off the masks. You don't need to pretend anymore. You don't need to act like you're normal, because what is normal anyway? I think that normal is kind of made up. I think we're all really weird in
Yeah.
some
Normal sounds so
aspect.
boring.
Bleh. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so that's kind of at the core of everything that I offer, in terms of the group stuff that I do, and the group program. I ran it for the first time last year, and we went through. It was a 3 to 6 month journey. We went through the chakras, so we started at the root, went all the way to the crown, and then did communing with nature and the feminine archetypes, and sharing. The women all shared their magic in the container, and it was just like it was profound. I've never
Yeah.
witnessed women just coming together, storytelling, the realizations that were happening in the space. Like, I couldn't have made any of it up. Like, it was just,
Right.
it was so beautiful. Everybody, like, I learnt from them, they learnt from me. Everybody was inputting things. Like, I feel like that's kind of the way it was, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
hundreds of years ago. And I'm like, let's keep bringing that back. That's, storytelling and sharing and
The ancestral magic.
yeah, being together in community with other women. There is something very, very special about that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so cool. Do you have a favorite breathing exercise that's simple that you can share on here? Like something if somebody wants to
Mm,
ground themselves really quick, like do you have a go-to for that?
I do, and I love talking about it because every
Okay.
time I say the name of it, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to remember that." So, its scientific name is the physiological reset breath,
Okay.
but the name that I always give people to remember is the sniff sniff poo.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
That's great.
So, yeah, so the reason it's called the sniff sniff poo,
I love this already.
right? Is because you're doing two like sniffs through your nose, like a, and then when you exhale, you let it out the mouth like
Okay.
poo.
Okay.
So and you do that. I often do that when I'm driving, or um, you know, if I'm feeling a little bit like I'm like, "Oh, the things are getting a lot right now."
And are the sniffs more like superficial or are you pulling them down to like your tailbone?
Um, no, they're quite superficial, but
Okay.
if you wanted to imagine like you were pulling down to the tailbone, then that's fine as well. I
But they're more
don't think
shallow
there's any
sniffs.
kind of yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's what
Okay.
you're doing is that you are doing a reset of your vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is that main two nerves that run from the brainstem into most of your major organs.
Okay.
And when you're doing the sniff sniff poo, it's basically doing a reset of that nerve and letting your body know that you are safe.
Okay.
And so you're bringing yourself back to like that parasympathetic rest and digest mode of your nervous system.
Okay. I might have to walk around sniffing and pooing. So,
Yeah,
so if you see me out there doing that, don't ask questions.
that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So yeah, no, that's pretty great. So do you have any projects in the work, like anything that you're working towards right now that you're super excited about?
Oh, I mean, just I'm continuing on with this group program. I ran it last year was the first time I ran it. I'm running it again twice this year, so my aim is to keep growing it. I trialed in the second half of last year doing it as an online component as well, so that we can reach more women, and it actually worked really well. So, yeah, I'm just my focus this year is really about continuing to root down the system of my business.
Yeah.
Um, this stuff takes time. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't necessarily got any new projects. It's more about continuing to grow the things that I've already put in place.
Yeah. Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Um, I love that. So do you have any other words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience before we hop off of here?
I mean, if we're going back to talking about intuition and mediumship and all of those things that we've been talking about for most of the podcast, I would really say from experience from working with all of the women last year is really just to trust yourself. So many of the women in that group were really shocked when we did intuitive exercises on each other how right they were. And I think that we can often second guess ourselves or, doubt, oh, did this came through, was this true? And it's like, actually, you trust yourself more because the answers are already there within you. And like I said, intuition is a muscle. So
Mhm.
keep practicing, keep using the muscle and it will grow.
Yeah, I actually would agree with that. And I'm going to piggyback on that for a second, just because
Mm.
I'm 46 and I've been a
Are
psychic.
you?
Yeah. And so I've been a
Wow.
psychic medium my whole life. And I wasn't always out there with it, but I've been
Mm.
practicing my whole life. Right. So even with
Mm.
that, I took a class over the weekend that helped. It was more forensic based, so that way you can kind of learn how to work with the law and stuff like that. So I was kind of touching base with that and seeing how I felt about it. But even with that, we had to practice some casework, and it was such a great exercise because I was reminded of why you don't doubt
Mm.
yourself, right? We did the practice, we wrote down everything that came to us, and even if it didn't necessarily line up with that case we were working on, there was still solid validation as to why that piece showed up. And
Yeah.
that feedback is so important, but that's exactly how you work that muscle and why you don't doubt your intuition because you're never wrong, right? There's never
Yeah.
any such thing as wrong. And so it was a good reminder of that. And so that's why I want to just add to that piece that you said, because absolutely, like if you can grow
Mm.
confidence in just that, that will get you so far.
Yeah, well, I love that you said that because in our crown chakra session in the group program, we focused on firstly imagining or sending a color to the other woman, and the other woman had to guess the color. And
Right.
most of the time, they got it right. And then the next thing we did was imagining sending an emotion to the woman. And what was so interesting was that the other woman couldn't pick up on the emotion that they were sending them. They could only pick up on the emotion that the woman was feeling in that moment.
Okay.
And they
Yeah.
were getting really frustrated. They were like, "We keep getting it wrong, Rachel." And I was like, "Good. That's the point of this. Like, good that you got it wrong because intuition doesn't lie. Like, you can't just pretend that you're sending an emotion to someone. If someone's highly intuitive, they're going to be picking up on the truth." Like,
Right.
so I loved it was a cool exercise to be like, yeah, you can't pretend.
Yeah.
Intuition can't pretend. It
Right.
picks up on the realness.
It's there. Yeah. The answer's still
Mm,
there. Whether or not
yeah,
you're tuned into it or not is might be a different story, but the answer is definitely
yeah,
there. Yeah, that's so
exactly.
true. That's
Yeah,
absolutely true. So
yeah.
what's the fastest way for our viewers or our listeners and viewers to find you? I will have that information in the show notes, but if you have a preferred way for them to get a hold of you, you could share right now, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So I'm mainly on Instagram. So my handle is restorative underscore rach underscore. And yeah, you can DM me through there. That's the best way to contact me. I love having chats with people. I'm all about building relationships. So yeah, please reach out to me via there or email. So restorative.rach1@gmail.com is the other way.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being with us today. This was actually really fun to sit and talk about things. I mean, we
Yes.
talked about something I'd never talked about before. You shared
Yep.
something in the story I'd never heard before. And I'm just going to recap real quick. When you
Yeah.
shared the experience of the man in the wedding dress and him being shocked that you saw him,
Yes.
I know a lot of psychics and mediums. I've never heard a story like that. So yeah.
Interesting.
So that one got me. I think that was a pretty cool experience. So I just wanted to recap on that for a second. But thank
Love
you
that.
for allowing some firsts for me today. I love that. That's always
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And thank you
So
for having me.
absolutely. So if you want to help me tell our audience goodbye, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.